Okay, hi Sandor. Hi everybody. This is a bonus video. We had so much interest and engagement from our audience for Sandor's session on performance management ratings debate that he has generously agreed to come back and answer the questions that we couldn't get to ask during the session. So we're going to go through a few more questions now and hear Sandor's thoughts on these. So thank you kindly, Sandor, for joining us one more time
No,
to
thank you,
talk all
Ashley.
things
Thank you,
performance
Ashley. I
management.
think it's a good thing to just finish what we started yesterday. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Okay. So your first question here is, why should the line manager be the only rating decision maker in a world of matrix organizations, functional projects, etc.? And to what extent did you bring in other perspectives like a management team calibration element in your year-end rating and reward? And that one comes from Kieran in ESB.
Yeah, great question. And actually, we absolutely shouldn't. I mean, we should not keep the rating as long as we have a rating. Yes, I think that's a little bit the internal debates we had. So once you have a rating system where you actually officially create the rating, the way it worked in GE was exactly how you question it. So so we had it was owned by the line manager, but a line manager would never actually make a rating by him or herself. We always kind of looked at who else the person reporting in the matrix and get the insights from those folks as well. And when we turn into the no ratings, as I mentioned to you, I mean, even though it was a no rating system, we still kind of had a summary touch point at the end of the year. And if you want to prepare as a good leader for a summary touch point, you know, one way of doing it, you know, if you have one of your direct report who is, let's say, if you're a CEO or a GM for a business or a region manager, who you have an HR guy is helping you, you have a finance guy helping you, who are certainly reporting into the HR matrix and into the finance matrix. It was absolutely not just regular, but it was actually expected that you reach out to those leaders as well and you get the insights from them. So when you talk to the so the way we managed it is that individual who is sitting in the matrix would not have 3 different performance management discussions, you know, with all the other leaders. You have one with your direct line manager, but that discussion actually assumes that all the inputs from the other matrix participants are in. So, and here's the debate, yes, because that was actually easier to do when we had a formalized process for creating the ratings. You know, once you kind of get rid of the rating, you're a little bit, you can give guidance to the leaders that this is still expected to do it like that, but you don't have any more a supporting system that pulls you through that it's actually done. So typically what's happening is a good leader would do that anyway, and the not so good leader probably would not do it. And to be frank, you know, our debate here concluded that not so good leader most probably didn't do it properly in the previous system either. Maybe ticked the box, but never actually gave a good feedback anyway. So that's why, you know, if you have an issue with a leader that you have to coach, then you have an issue with a leader you have to coach, and there's no way around. You know, you just have to take that and get the leader prepared.
Yeah, and just to follow on from Kieran's question, so in that no ratings period, did you completely get rid of calibration, all elements of calibration, and just move into more purist talent management, succession planning style, people management days, if you like, but calibration in essence was gone?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a bit, again, that question around if you then still link the performance, the let's say reward decisions to this outcome, to this now personalized outcome. Yes, because now you're not putting people in a box. You know, you're not putting people in a category 1 or category 2. Everybody has an individual rating, if you like. You know, in the no rating, it's like an individual rating for everybody.
Yes.
So that still means you can differentiate, but as it's not formalized, you know, somehow you lose a little bit of transparency, especially on the benchmarking with others. type, and we were struggling a bit with that, so that was something that we didn't figure out how to do it.
And did you find in that period that, and now I'm just asking my own questions, but I'm so curious, did you find in that period that, the classic high performers, those overachievers who like to know that they're ahead of the game and that they're kind of doing better than everyone else, did they struggle with a no ratings environment in particular?
Not really, because actually what you could still do, you can still reward them outstandingly, you can still give them a fantastic feedback. So none of those parts were missing. I think the ones who were struggling a bit were probably more the people leaders, where they had to differentiate. And, it was so easy to tell to your guys that, sorry guys, I can only give a code 1 to my best guy, and you guys are, you're fantastic as well, but I can't give you a code 1 anymore, and that's why, I can only give you X% of salary increase. It's a bad answer from a manager, yes, but it's easy to do. And once you don't have that, you actually have to be much more skilled to explain to the individual why you're, if you still want to differentiate, then it's a bit more complicated to explain why you're giving what you're giving.
That's so true, isn't it? And it really puts the onus on the manager to be talking to their people much more frequently as well, to build them up for that message. That because of, if you're landing it at the end of the year and there's no rating crutch to fall back on, you really need to have let them know throughout the year that they're where they stand, or at least that those moments of accountability are inserted.
But I can tell you what was the effect on myself. Yes, as a people leader, I actually realized I was preparing much more for these year-end discussions in the no rating sessions than before, because there was nowhere to hide. I had to have very good arguments, and I really had to review what has happened all throughout the year. It was easier to prepare to a certain extent because I already had my discussions and I don't have to remember, hey, what was happening in March, because it was all documented in the tool already. So the tool was fantastic to help us to prepare. But for the discussion and arguments, why we end up where we end up, I had to actually start preparing for those discussions.
Oh, interesting. So if I was to ask you, your preferences now, a world with ratings or a world without ratings, as a people leader and as a HR person, would you answer differently?
I'm a big believer of no ratings, but it needs to be in context, yes. So it really needs to match with the business that is in. It really needs to match with the kind of culture of the business, and also the kind of curve of where this business is in its maturity, let's put it this way. Yes. So it's fantastic for a tech business. It's fantastic for true people businesses, in a sense where you have most of your outcome coming from people.
Yeah.
But once it's more a kind of industrial business with a lot of additional things rather than just people input, then you start to miss a bit the structure around, and also in some times, if you are in a big restructuring mode, I'm not sure this is the time when you need to. There are times in the business where you want to command and control, what I'm trying to say. And if you want to do command and control, then don't do no ratings. Yes, I mean, then you need a rating system that is crystal clear and you go through. If you're in a phase where you're ready to give more, to the more freedom, empower, inspire, then it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. We meet a lot of clients who are, really raring to go and they really want to move to a no ratings culture, but we'd always caution them against the organizational readiness. So it's not that you shouldn't move to a no ratings culture. It's just that you need to build up a capability and a readiness in your organization to be able to get there. So I think you're completely right. It's not right for everyone at any time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to the questions. So how did GE handle those poor people managers who couldn't handle the cultural shift?
Wow. The question is formulated so nicely in a way. I mean, obviously I would love to say that we developed everybody, but I mean, certainly that you get to a point where you can develop the ones who can be developed, and there are some who will just not be able to take the speed. So I think, let me answer it in a bit different way. As I mentioned to you, there were some organizations within GE which were more successful in implementing no ratings, and there were ones which were least successful. And one of the factors of being successful or not successful, apart from the business readiness and business type, etc., it was also the implementation itself. How much time and effort are you ready to give to an implementation? And there were parts of the organization that I've seen with my own eyes who believe that, okay, we do a couple of presentations, we send it to the managers, and off we go, and it's done. And I think you need to understand that this is such a fundamental change, especially in GE's life. It was such a fundamental change that we were very clear that this is a multi-year, multi-cycle type of project that needs to be adjusted as we go, and communication is key, and development of the leaders is key. So we were in these organizations that we were successfully implementing. We had multiple sessions with the people leaders, joint sessions, online sessions, where we were preparing them with case studies. Yes, so not just giving a pitch, but also kind of helping them to go through actual situations that can happen, and how do they answer, how do they solve. And again, response to that was largely positive, but not everybody was happy about it. And even in the senior management, some people were not happy about it. And I can tell you, even on the top of the top, we had leaders who obviously they accepted the change, because somehow in GE that was the way. Yes, I mean, once you realize that's going to happen, everybody's going with the change. But there were parts of the organization who said, okay, I'm going with the change, but still give me my 9 block. So I understand what you're saying, no ratings, but give me my 9 block. So I think it took a long time for people leaders to understand what we really mean, and some of them changed, and there were some who just couldn't, and a lot of them didn't stay with GE actually.
Wow, really? Yeah, so fundamental to them.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. Next question then is, how have you changed your goal setting approach too?
Good question, because I think yesterday we didn't have a lot of time to talk about that one, and the answer is absolutely yes. So one of the obviously the starting point of all of the discussions, again, in the past, in this famous EMS system, we had a goals and objectives session, quite similar to, I think, what everybody is doing. You kind of try to set up yearly goals. But again, when we were reviewing what we are doing, one of the observations was that most of the people didn't even remember. Actually, as the speed of change, was accelerating in the last decades. In today's world, a lot of people didn't even remember what was my objective. What is this objective here?
Yeah.
I don't know if it happened to you. You take your goals and objectives from the beginning of the year, and you look at it and, why did I write this here?
Yeah, it's completely irrelevant.
I don't remember what it was. So I think these moments kind of piled up, and that's why we changed that as well. And again, in the language piece, as I was talking about, the usage of different language, we changed actually goals and objectives, and we talked about priorities, because when goals and objectives is somehow more a static word. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but that was our conclusion in GE. Goals and objectives sounds like longer term, sounds like very something that you decide and you go for, and it's like a yearly or even beyond time frame. And that's why we started to use priorities, because when you're talking about priorities, it's actually almost like your daily
the immediate
couple of things that you want to sit down, and you're really talking about what are the top 3 things that I'm going to resolve now before I move further. And obviously we didn't expect people to update their priorities every day, but
Yeah.
kind of, in a regular basis, even a couple of weeks or a month's basis, definitely yes. So, so this went into the same tool actually for us, where we captured the priorities. So there were the two big parts of this online web-enabled tool, where we were exchanging insights, and at the same time, this was the same place where we formulated our priorities. One very important thing that came to my mind, and it was not asked, but maybe I can link it to this question, because as along the same line as we changed from goals and objectives to priorities, there's one additional thing happened, which is that typically when you set goals and objectives, there was a lot of top down in it. Yes, I mean, there's an organization goal, and I don't know if you have experienced that, when in April you're still setting your goals, yes, because somebody have not cascaded the goals, and you lose a quarter by just trying to set your goals. And we tried to get rid of that. And we said, guys, don't wait for your leader. You do your job. You need to know what your priorities right now. So you do your priorities, and you obviously share it with your manager, and then you discuss it and you confirm it. But you don't have to wait for any organization goals, anything at all, before you set your priorities. So you change actually this bottom-up approach to the top-down approach to a bottom-up approach, which was also a significant impact on how we were managing.
We see a lot of organizations moving to bottom up for the exact same reason. They can't get the cascade down quick enough. And therefore, it's more about alignment. So they'll have like very top line objectives, like strategic business drivers, which are almost generic, and then the employees can align themselves to the strategic drivers so that you do know, in which context these goals sit.
But, and again, it also, one of our point was that, guys, priorities are going to change. So it is absolutely okay if you are setting some priorities, and then because after your discussion with your manager, you're going to change them because you're going to add something or you're going to take out something, you make some notes, and that's fine.
Yeah. It's so interesting. In the early days when we were building Tandem, we'd such a debate about, because we wanted more short-term, agile, reiterative goals that could evolve throughout the year, and we called them priorities. But the market just couldn't, we had to relabel them goals because nobody could understand what these priority things were, So, but now I think it's becoming more and more normalized, and people are going for much more shorter term agile goals. Okay, so I think we've got ourselves through all of the questions. So thank you for that. I have one last question, if you'll indulge me. I'm just really curious about what the reaction was when you returned to ratings, whether people were okay with that and got behind it, or whether they were going, no, we want to stay with a no ratings culture, or how did it go down?
Well, that's a very good question, I think. And this is some kind of an ongoing thing, even today. I think as the organization itself, and I was mentioning, GE was changing itself, it was kind of inevitable that some things will change with it, and focusing down to the core businesses. We had a new CEO, we had a new CHRO, and you kind of expect that some things were so. The organization was kind of ready for it. Now, it was never presented in a way that we are going back to ratings. Yes, it was not a question of going back to ratings. It was more that, look, as we are kind of going into another cycle where we are now for clean industrial businesses, and we are focusing on performing and getting back to a little bit to the Jack Welch era, if you like, in terms of more measured performance. It actually goes very well together. If you want to measure it, then some kind of an assessment on performance is inevitable. And the way it presented that we're going to have some more concrete measures of performance but not, not to say that we're going to, it was always clearly communicated as well that we were never going to go back to one rating like we had before. So like one overall rating, if you like. It's going to be something more kind of, again, as I mentioned, the kind of Deloitte type of future focused part of assessment. But this is the reason why I'm answering it so cautiously, because this is an ongoing thing. So,
right. Okay. Yeah.
And I think some people were fine with it. I think nobody was surprised. And again, as I told you, a lot of the businesses have, digital business. It's changed so significantly that today they are very different than they were before when we were launching this.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, it just leaves me to say thank you so much for coming back to answer all of the questions. And I know you've put the work in here because there was a lot of questions for you, but I think that's a sign of a really engaging and interesting topic. So a huge thank you for joining us, Sandor. I loved every minute of it and really enjoyed hearing your story and indeed your personal story with it too. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you very much, I think, as well. Thank you.